When we came back to Canada earlier this year, I wasn't looking for another boss. What I was looking for was what let me decide when I worked. After spending time in Costa Rica, we came back through Alberta, then into Saskatchewan, before eventually arriving back to Alberta. And during that time, I started researching gig work. Uber Eats, Skip the Dishes, different platforms that would let me choose my own hours. And eventually, I signed up with Instacart. And honestly, I'm still doing this today. One thing I want to make clear is that this is not an anti-gig work video. In fact, there are quite a few things I genuinely like about Instacart. I enjoy shopping, I enjoy helping people, and I like being able to decide whether today is a work day or not. If I need money, I go to work. If I need a day off, like today, well, I don't have to ask for permission. That flexibility is real. After doing this for the past couple of months, I also started to notice something else. Flexibility is not the same as stability. Some days, these batches that I receive, they're fantastic. But then there's other days that you sit there, refreshing the app, wondering where everything went. One order might pay $8, and the next might pay about $70. The highest I've ever gotten was $75. But then things change, like fuel or distances, the weight of the groceries even, and the app itself, that sometimes changes too. And you start realizing that while you are your own boss, in many ways, your income still is heavily influenced by an algorithm that you do not control. Now, when I first started, the pay was not very impressive. You have to learn the stores, you have to learn where everything is, and you have to figure out how the app works. But then you discover that there are different shopper levels. There are 3 tiers: Gold, Platinum, and Diamond. And as you complete more orders, you unlock better opportunities and additional perks. Today, I'm already at Platinum. So yes, experience does matter. But even with that, one thing never really changes. Tomorrow's income still depends on accepting tomorrow's batch. This is the realization that stuck with me. But then there are the costs that people don't always think about. Fuel, oil changes, brakes, tires, depreciation. I'm driving an older SUV and it loves fuel. If I owned a hybrid or an electric vehicle, I'm probably sure my numbers would look differently, but that's a different story. And those expenses, they do matter. But what you do have to look at is what you're actually keeping after the day is over, not just what the app says you earned. That's one of the reasons why I've tracked everything right from the very beginning. I wanted to understand the business, not just the deposits. So here's the interesting part. Doing Instacart didn't make me stop thinking about building websites. It actually made me think about them even more. Because while I was driving, I kept asking myself, what happens if I get sick? What happens if my vehicle breaks down? What happens if the app changes? What happens if the best paying batches disappear? You see, none of those questions really mean that gig work is bad. They simply just reminded me why I still wanted another income pillar. It's not to replace Instacart overnight. It's not to quit tomorrow. But it's to slowly build something that does not depend on accepting that next batch. That's exactly why I created this gig driver blueprint. Not because I think every driver should stop driving. Actually, I don't. If gig work fits your lifestyle, great. But I do think every gig driver does deserve to understand what building a second income pillar actually looks like. Inside the blueprint, I walk through a realistic 30-day test. There's no hype. There's no recruiting, so it's not an MLM or a pyramid scheme. But there's also no promises of easy money. It's just a calm explanation of how digital assets are built over time and how they might fit around an already underappreciated and unpredictable schedule. One thing gig driving has taught me is that flexibility is incredibly valuable. I wouldn't trade that. But flexibility and stability, they aren't always the same thing. For me, the goal isn't to choose one over the other. It's building both. If driving continues to pay the bills, while something else quietly grows in the background, well, that's a position I'd much rather be in than relying on one app forever. If you'd like to continue with this conversation, I've linked the free gig driver's second income blueprint in the description below. Read it whenever you have time. There's no pressure to decide anything today. The goal, just like always, is clarity before commitment.